Warner Brothers and DC are no strangers to having ex-writers, directors, producers, actors, and actresses talk about them. Sometimes they're good things and sometimes they're bad things. And usually Warner Brothers and DC connected to Warner Brothers, it's not often something good is being talked about with them. DC is the center of controversy, especially connected with Warner Brothers when it comes to the movie department. Well, now we can add another person to this list, and that person is Tim Burton. Whether or not you have seen his statements, Tim Burton has officially come out and talked about what he thought of Michael Keaton's Batman's usage in the Flash film, along with Nicolas Cage's appearance as Superman. Now, in all fairness, as I've said many times on this channel before, and if you're new here, you'll get to hear it for the first time, I am not a fan of Tim Burton's work when it comes to Batman. I'm not overly fond of too many Tim Burton movies to begin with, but his Batman is not my Batman. I'm not a big fan of it. I don't really like Michael Keaton as Batman in the first place. It's just not what I grew up with, and it's not what I'm really interested in. And I can tell you right now, if he did get around to making his Superman film, I definitely wouldn't have been interested in that either. Of course, I completely understand people who do like Michael Keaton's Batman, who do like Tim Burton's Batman movies, and who would have loved to have seen his take on Superman. Even though I am on the opposite side of that, I will still say Tim Burton deserves a certain level of respect. He deserves respect for showing a world of Batman where you can take him seriously. He deserves respect for fulfilling a lot of the wishes and dreams that people may have ever wanted to see in a Batman film during that time. And he deserves respect for bringing in new people, new fans who may have watched that movie and became fans of Batman or DC afterwards. Now, these studios can do and honestly will do whatever the hell they want. They do not appreciate or respect anybody. When you're dealing with such a beloved version of Batman, especially for people who grew up with him, the least you could have done was maybe ask Tim Burton what he thought of what they were going to do with Michael Keaton's Batman, instead of just using him for nostalgia purposes and completely ruining the character that people grew up loving back in 1989 and so on. In his interview with the British Film Institute, when asked about what he thought about Batman and Superman, his versions appearing in the latest Flash film, here's what he had to say. "This is why I think I'm over it with the studio. They can take what you did, Batman or whatever, and culturally misappropriate it, or whatever you want to call it. Even though you're a slave of Disney or Warner Brothers, they can do whatever they want. So in my latter years of life, I am in quiet revolt against all of this." And sure, at first glance, that might just sound like he's a little disappointed, but when you really pay attention to the use of his words, you can tell he thinks what they did was disgusting. He thinks it's awful. You take Michael Keaton's Batman, you bring him as a main character into the movie just to end up killing him off with absolutely no reason at all. There's no character growth. There's no future for that particular character. I mean, the least they could have done was maybe end the movie where he's still alive and just maybe won't be Batman anymore. I don't know. Anything would have worked. Instead, you end up killing him. And then Nicolas Cage's Superman cameo, they only use that to, in some way, hope people will actually sit down in a theater and watch their travesty of a film. They really banked off of this idea that people would come watch the movie, considering Nicolas Cage was making a cameo as a Superman he was supposed to play some time ago. And we all know how the cameos and the Easter eggs were handled with this movie. A lot of people were not feeling very kind about them, and I completely understand why, especially too when you have to defile the grave of Christopher Reeve just so you hope that you can make a few extra bucks in the box office, which it really didn't serve them well at all, did it? It's one thing to use these characters and the actors and actresses that once played these characters if you're trying trying to honor and respect them and where they came from and what they did for this brand and this IP. But it's a completely different situation when you're just using them for nostalgia's sake and giving them an uncanny valley type of appearance that just becomes really disturbing. And I know Nicolas Cage has stated that he was on set for this movie and he did film his Superman scene, but I'm just going to be completely honest with you right now. What was the damn point? The whole scene was just CGI. I wouldn't even be surprised if something came out where they said, yeah, he actually didn't dress up as Superman. They just CGI'd the scene. His face was so poorly managed and edited, you wouldn't even believe that Nicolas Cage was there in the first place. Then again, all of that is just Hollywood being Hollywood. Like I said, lack of respect. They don't care what people have done for them before. All they care about is the now. And for some reason, Warner Brothers has this belief that the now is nostalgia. Just because Spider-Man No Way Home got away with it does not mean that you guys could have got away with it in the way you did it. When you're dealing with characters like this, when you're dealing with people who worked on characters like this, like Tim Burton, like Christopher Nolan, like Richard Donner, and I know Richard Donner is no longer with us, I'm just using his name as an example of proficiency within these characters. The least you can do is maybe consult them about what you're going to be doing. If you're using their character, maybe you actually want to go along with what they would have to say about it and maybe not ruin the version of their character that you're trying to make in your cash grab film. When this movie was happening and Michael Keaton was announced to be returning as Batman, one side of me was thinking to myself, well, this is a really big missed opportunity because you could have just been using Jeffrey Dean Morgan to be playing Thomas Wayne's version of Batman to, connect it to Ben Affleck's Batman, but that's besides the point. The other side of me was thinking, to connect more with your audiences today, probably what you should have done, what would have been better for you, is to use Christian Bale's Batman, is to take the Batman we've seen most recently aside from Ben Affleck and use him in this movie. You would have gotten more people to go see the film and you would have made more money. But can I say, thank goodness that never happened, because if that's how they were going to treat Tim Burton's versions of these characters, the last thing I would have wanted to see is what they were going to do with Christopher Nolan's Batman. Based off of rumors, apparently Warner Brothers did try and ask Bale to come back for the movie. Originally, they were going to do Bale over Keaton. I don't know how true that is. I don't know if that is literally just rumor or if there is truth to that rumor, but it's all the same. It does not matter. I am very happy that Christian Bale sticks to his guns and says, hey, I'll never return back for Batman unless Nolan's involved. This was a 3-part story, and that's where it ends. I don't want to defile this character for money and blind nostalgia purposes the way Warner Brothers seems to want to do with these characters. We all know there's at least one person out there who does enjoy what happened to Michael Keaton's Batman in that movie and would have enjoyed it just as much if it happened to Christian Bale's Batman. James Gunn. As I'm sure everyone has seen this, his comments about previous Batman films, and not just sharing opinions on why he may not like it, but to stick his ego out in plain sight and to call his super film 100 times better than Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, or to essentially tell everyone to F themselves if they were part of Burton's travesty of his 2 films. That's just scratching the surface on some of the terrible things he's had to say about DC characters in the past and just terrible things this guy has said in general over time. But no wonder James Gunn supported this movie so much and backed this movie so much. He got to see a Batman he absolutely despised from an actor he's not fond of and a director he doesn't like get killed on screen. Although what Tim Burton says is just more validation on why we may not like what they did in the Flash film with these cameos and Easter eggs, or why we feel uncomfortable with what they did, or just in general, why we don't like what's going on with DC right now. Warner Brothers needs to realize it's not them who made these characters what they are today and why we love some of these versions of these characters. It's the creatives, it's the directors, it's the writers who made these characters what they are. It's these actors who portrayed them to be what they are. And Warner Brothers thinks they can take any version of these characters they want, cut and paste it onto the poster of an upcoming movie, and just assume that it's going to be a financial success, a critically acclaimed success, and a fan success, and that is not how this works. Also, to go along with that, the fact that Warner Brothers does not have the reputation to be able to do something like this and have a majority of people to say, oh, this was actually interesting, or oh, this was pretty good. And sometimes I think to myself, maybe we shouldn't take this too seriously, because they certainly don't take it too seriously. This is the same company that within that same film decided to use a CGI'd shot of Henry Cavill as Superman fighting the Justice League after he was resurrected, instead of, literally using that exact same scene from Zack Snyder's Justice League. And this is the same studio that ended the Flash movie with none other than George Clooney's Batman, the most unsuccessful and running gagged Batman of all time. And we know that this Flash film underwent a lot of production hell. It probably would have looked different if it was released maybe 2 years ago or even 4 years ago instead of when it was actually released. But I'm just putting this into perspective. Even though we don't fully know what Andy Muschietti is probably capable of because of the things they possibly had to change for the film, I'm just saying, you now make that guy the future director of the next Batman. The writing's on the wall here. So I know this video may be shorter than some of my usual videos, but I just wanted to come on and talk about this situation, because if you're one of those people who sit behind their computer or their phone and read some of these stupid news headlines that constantly overshadow DC and Warner Brothers, how terribly run this company is, the bleak future of DC, and the decisions some of these people in power make for these characters, you're not alone. I do this all the time, constantly scratching my head, wondering what the hell's going on, and clearly so is Tim Burton. And 100% Tim Burton is not the only big-time director, actor, producer, or writer who is against this company and is against what Warner Brothers does with DC. So let me know in the comments down below what you thought of Tim Burton's comments, and if there's anything else you would like to add on top of this situation. That is all I have for you on this one, everybody. So until next time, I will talk to you all very soon.